From Washington, this is VOA News. I'm Jonathan Smith reporting. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley told the UN Security Council Wednesday that the United States is prepared to use military means to defend itself and its allies from the growing threat of North Korea. From the UN, VOA's Margaret Bashir has more.
In an emergency meeting called by the U.S., Japan, and South Korea following Pyongyang's launch Tuesday of an intercontinental ballistic missile, Nikki Haley laid out the Trump administration's options as it sees them.
One of our capabilities lies with our considerable military forces. We will use them if we must, but we prefer not to have to go in that direction. We have other methods of addressing those who threaten us, and of addressing those who supply the threats. We have great capabilities in the area of trade.
China is North Korea's largest trade partner, accounting for some 90% of trade with the rogue nation. Haley was clear that countries which allow or encourage trade with North Korea that violates UN resolutions would see their trade agreements with the United States suffer as a result.
Our attitude on trade changes when countries do not take international security threats seriously.
Ambassador Haley said she would circulate a new draft sanctions resolution among council members in the coming days, which would be proportionate to North Korea's escalation. China has not indicated whether it would be willing to support new sanctions. Russia expressed opposition. Both countries said any military solution to the problem must not be an option. Margaret Bashir, VOA News, the United Nations.
You're listening to news from the Voice of America in Washington. Rescuers were being scrambled Thursday to reach areas of southern Japan hit by flash flooding in the aftermath of a typhoon that swept through the area earlier this week. At least one person was killed and several were reported missing after torrential rains swelled rivers and triggered landslides in Fukuoka and Oita prefectures. Japan's meteorological agency said unprecedented amounts of rain would continue to fall in the two prefectures through Thursday. Shellfire from fighting at an airport in Libya has killed 5 people and wounded at least 25 others on a nearby beach in Tripoli. A Libyan Interior Ministry official said the battle Wednesday was between security forces and what he called outlaws, but it is unclear who exactly was involved and what started the fighting. Libya has been immersed in chaos since dictator Muammar Gaddafi was overthrown and killed in 2011. A Somali official says 13 al-Shabaab militants have been killed in an apparent joint attack by U.S. and Somali government forces near the Somali city of Kismayo. A Somali military source says U.S. helicopters carried Somali special forces to the site of the attack, about 500 kilometers south of Mogadishu, and fired on the militants during the battle. Armed police in Kiev have raided a software firm that supplies Ukraine's most widely used tax and accounting programs and said they acted to prevent another major cyber attack. Ukraine blamed the Kremlin for the cyber attack, but Russia has denied any involvement. A police spokesman said on Wednesday, "We prevented the initiation of a second wave of viruses." He added that investigators have already found evidence of Russian presence on the servers that they seized. Police equipped for combat seized the servers at the main office in Ukraine's capital of a software company called ME-DOC. Employees stood by calmly as officers carrying assault weapons and clothed in camouflage gear carted away the computer equipment. And armed supporters of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro are holding hostage the country's entire legislature. VOA's Alvaro Algara, reporting Wednesday from Caracas, said he and other reporters and a number of non-legislators are also being held, along with all 112 elected members of the National Assembly, which is controlled by Maduro's political opponents. You can find more on these and other stories from around the world around the clock at voanews.com. I'm Jonathan Smith in Washington.
That's the latest world news from VOA.